And if you want something that makes this into a horror story, just keep in mind, you think you have all of these freedoms. The National Defense Authorization Act of 2012 essentially said that American citizens can be treated as enemy combatants if the government dictates that you are a person who needs to be made an enemy combatant. And no one would ever hear from you again. They would put you in a cell for the rest of your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of the Everyman Movie Review. Today we are going to be talking about Adam Driver's newest movie, The Terror Report, which was released in the fall of 2019 but has recently come to streaming. As always, you'll be able to find a link if you'd like to watch down below in the show notes. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping on the reviews themselves. Back in September, we hit 1 year of doing these reviews, and we are now coming up on the 1 year anniversary of doing 2 reviews every single week, generally on Thursday, and then on Sunday you get a new episode with a new review. It's been exponentially harder since we went into quarantine because movie theaters closed, so we weren't going out to see new movies. It was about what was new on streaming or was something worthwhile to watch on streaming. And doing these reviews has been unbelievably fulfilling for me. However, it is insanely time intensive to put out 2 reviews per week and make sure that you have a schedule where you can make sure that you get out 2 reviews per week. So for that reason, at the end of this year, the Everyman Movie Reviews will be going on an indefinite hiatus for the near future. The last episode will be December 31st, 2020, which is in fact a Thursday. And through December, I'll also be featuring some videos about Christmas movies, which I tried to do last year, but wasn't able to get completed. We're going to push through and do the 12 days of Christmas with 12 movies leading up to Christmas Day. But starting the next week in 2021, there will be no new episodes, at least for the foreseeable future. I want to thank everyone who has been so supportive of me doing these reviews, those of you who check them out weekly or bi-weekly, those of you who have listened to or watched every single episode, whether it's on Anchor or on YouTube. And just know that me freeing up some time means I can focus on other projects. I have some books that I'd like to finish, some screenplays I'd like to finish, and we'll be pushing through with some other YouTube or Anchor related projects as well. So we have 13 episodes left together, including this one. So let's get started with The Terror Report by getting the pleasantries out of the way. The Terror Report was written and directed by Scott Z. Burns. It is starring, of course, Adam Driver as Daniel Jones, Corey Stoles as Cyrus Clifford, John Hamm as Dennis McDonough, Linda Powell as Marcy Morris, Annette Bening as Senator Dianne Feinstein, John Rothman as Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Victor Slezak as Senator Jay Rockefeller, Guy Boyd as Senator Saxby Chambliss, Alexander Chaplin as Sean Murphy, Maura Tierney as Bernadette, Michael C. Hall as Thomas Eastman, Dominic Famosa as George Tenet, and Scott Shepard as Senator Mark Udall, as well as, of course, a fantastic supporting cast. So The Terror Report is one of those movies that you hope is fiction, but turns out to be based on a true story. Adam Driver is a young man and he's looking for a job. He goes in to see John Hamm about getting a job at the CIA and is rebuffed. They say he should go work on Capitol Hill instead. So he goes to work on Capitol Hill and ends up working for the Senate Intelligence Committee. After successfully completing a multi-year investigation and a report on behalf of this Senate committee, he is then tasked with looking into the CIA's detention program following 9/11. And the movie kind of cuts back and forth between the events as they occurred and the events as Daniel is investigating them, and none of it is good. I mean, it's fantastic when it comes to film, but when you know that this is Americans doing these things, making these decisions, none of it is good. So during his investigation, he learns that basically all bets were off. After 9/11, everyone focused on international terrorism and figuring out how they could stop the next terrorist attack. And a couple of guys who were not qualified to do so sold the CIA that they could set up an interrogation program that would lead to more people giving up more information. And they walked into it saying, listen, typical interrogation doesn't work. You got to get in the minds of these guys, and when you get in their minds, then you can really break them and get the truth. That turned out to not be so true. But Daniel, in the way that every good investigator does, starts pulling at strings and it all starts to unravel. One piece of information leads to another, names are revealed, and those people actually volunteer information that helps him down the road. And he's doing all of this while inside the CIA. And that's because instead of basically taking those documents out, they are so highly classified that the investigator for the Senate, which theoretically has oversight over the CIA, has to come into the CIA building. They're given a room in which to work. They're given access to a special server that's separate, and as files are approved to be shown to them, they're shown the files. And the movie opens with Daniel meeting with an attorney and talking about how he might need his services. And basically it does the what we call the Stewart Special. And the Stewart Special comes from script notes. That is where you show something very near the end, then there is a line somewhat like what Daniel says, like, well, I have to tell you the story. Cut to way back to the beginning. And basically it lets you know we're going to get here eventually, but let's show you how we got there. And then after you get back to that moment, then it kind of finishes the movie. So we kind of know going in that Daniel has done something wrong, we just don't know what, and we spend 2 hours figuring out whether he did something wrong and whether that wrong means illegal or immoral. And during that journey, he is under attack by basically everyone. He spends years on this investigation, 5 years in total, I think. And at times he's under attack by the CIA, who doesn't want to release anything. At times he's under attack by the administration, who's running things and doesn't want secrets to get out. And at times he seems like he's under attack from the very Senate committee that he's serving, because they're looking for answers. And kind of the way that government works, they want the quick, easy answer, maybe not the right answer. But that is about all I can mention without getting into spoilers. So I'm going to go ahead and cut away for a brief spoiler section. If you'd like to skip that, the time is down below, but go ahead and click there now because the spoilers are about to start right here. So I did a spoiler section, but in the end, it's probably a news story that you've seen before if you watch the The Anthem podcast with me and my buddy Corey, or just pay attention to any news, and that's Americans were torturing people. They put these bases in places where they were allowed to torture people, like Guantanamo Bay. They brought people there specifically for the purposes of torturing them to get information. Those people gave up information, which Daniel uncovers is not accurate whatsoever. And the old adage that the only thing that torture gets you is lies is proven true. When you're torturing someone, they will tell you whatever they need to get the torture to stop. Now, if you have in your mind that they know something, they will make up something to meet your expectations. And this entire program was organized under the Bush administration, obviously, and dubious legal distinctions and holdings that were then built on by previous dubious legal distinctions and holdings. And basically they built this case that looked good on the outside, but it was made of glass. And if you chipped away at it at all, it all came tumbling down. And Daniel was the one chipping away. So at portions you feel like he is actually in danger of life and limb, because if the CIA is willing to torture people, would they be willing to kill someone who works for the Senate? And then at other times, it's not the physical threat, it's the you have invested 5 years of your life in this. Your reputation, Daniel, is mixed all up in this. You will get none of the glory because the glory goes to the senators who are going to make this report, but the cost is all on you. And the CIA tries to ruin him. And I've seen other stories and heard things about how, some guy who's investigating the CIA, lo and behold, they find some kiddie porn in his apartment that his girlfriend had no idea was there, despite the fact she was living there for years. And his whole life is ruined. And that's actually a true thing that happened to a New York Times reporter that was later found to be planted by someone, likely the agency that he was investigating. So I have that in the back of my head where I'm seeing Daniel rush headwards into this investigation. He starts out with a crew of 3 people. It grows over time, but as the investigation is just going and going and going, people fall away. And in the end, it's really just him driving it. And they put 129 names on the board. 129 people who were known to be at the base, and finding out why they were there, how they got there, and what happened to them. They find a couple of deaths. People were tortured to death. They find a couple of people who gave up information and were released, and that information was later found to be false. And then they found people that were indefinitely detained because they were found to be too dangerous to be let out in the world, which means we're not going to charge you with anything. We're just going to hold you in a cell for the rest of your life. And if you want something that makes this into a horror story, just keep in mind, the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012 essentially said that American citizens, no matter who you are, can be treated as enemy combatants the same way that these folks were treated if the government dictates that you are a person who needs to be made an enemy combatant. So you think you have all of these freedoms. I love videos of Karens going crazy about rights that they don't have, but I also love videos of like attorneys and legal students who are like flexing their rights on officers. But imagine that you had been deemed a person who was needing to be taken care of, and you were deemed an enemy combatant. You could be walking down the street, have a van pull up, be black bagged, and shipped off to one of these black sites, and no one would ever hear from you again. They would put you in a cell for the rest of your life, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no legal things you can file. There is no rights because you no longer have rights. And all of that is being contested in different federal courts and probably wind up in the Supreme Court. We'll see how that goes now. But that is what Daniel is uncovering, that all of these things are happening. And in the end, he produces a very thorough, very lengthy report, and Democrats who are in control of the Senate Intelligence Committee are worried about releasing it because they've lost the Senate, and now they're worried about the impact with the administration. The Obama administration is coming in, and should we really do this now? And what they do in the end is they read it into the record. They don't release the report, but they do release a cover sheet and then read the full report into the congressional record, which is something. Not what should happen, but it is something. So Daniel gets to know that in the end, he is vindicated, at least somewhat. Somebody has read the report, they've heard what he had to say, and the truth is out there. And the reason we even know this story is because that is a fact. But of course, we've reached the end of the movie, and that means the end of the spoiler section. So let's bring everybody back in, and we are going to wrap up this review right now. So giving a grade or a recommendation for this movie is relatively easy. There is no violence. There's a little bit of cursing. There is the insinuation of torture. So like you see that somebody is being sleep deprived by loud music. Unless loud music offends you, it's not going to be a problem. You see people getting waterboarded. I don't know if everybody knows what waterboarding is, but you're not really injuring someone. It's simulating drowning. So what they do is here you go. They put a wash rag over your mouth, then they pour water on the wash rag. The wash rag makes sure that not enough water gets in your mouth and in your body for you to drown, but it simulates the feeling of drowning, and you panic. And once you start to panic, it's all over. Then they ask you a couple of questions, and in order to avoid that, you do it. You tell them whatever they want, even if it's not true. So there is simulated violence as far as you see some torture. There's not a lot of bloodshed. There's not a lot of like gun battles. There's not slicing and dicing. This is not guns akimbo. So as long as you're okay with a little bit of violence and kind of knowing that your government's the one that did that, then you should be fine. There's a little bit of cursing. There's a little bit of sexuality, but not, it's more of like Skinamax, where it's like, hey, something's about to happen, and slow pan away to something else. For the most part, this is just not going to be a great movie for people who don't like mysteries, but kind of like paperwork mysteries. This isn't Knives Out. It is really just a guy digging through paperwork. And you don't actually see him reading. When he reads a paper, we go see the scene that the paper is describing. But there is a long, like, laying out the case. And it is a long movie. It's over 2 hours long. So for people who aren't into government intrigue or like the CIA and what are they up to, FBI, those kind of movies, this isn't going to be for you. But if you are into those kind of movies, you're absolutely going to love this, and you're going to be terrified by it because of all of the things that it means based on a true story. Otherwise, though, my only warning is that it does tend to drag in parts. And I say drag because nothing actually happens, but I never felt like the movie was dragging. It felt like we're getting somewhere and you're giving me the slow reveal. And I really want it. Give it to me. I want that cathartic moment, but they make you hold back. And for that reason, it may not be for everybody as well. Otherwise, though, I think everybody should watch it to find out what we have as Americans and our American government been up to for so long. But if that's not for you, then you should probably skip it. So I obviously can't give a full-throated, everybody go see this, even though you really should. But if you do want to watch it, of course, the link is down in the show notes below. You're also going to find there links to my social media here. For Everyman Movie Reviews is all over social media, so you make sure you check that out. You can find me personally on social media at Robert N. Cheek and robertncheek.com for more information about all the stuff that I'm going to be working on, including moving into the future, stuff that hasn't even been announced. But thank you for joining me for this episode of the Everyman Movie Reviews. I'm looking forward to bringing you 12 more episodes before the end of the year and before our very sad goodbye. But until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great week.